as well as how to address them, how you deliver something from point A to point B, all the obstacles, hurdles, and valleys that we have until then. So, with that, I am pleased to provide you our MEAC board member and sponsor, Holly Neo, with the Nature Conservancy, who will introduce our next speaker. Thank you, Holly.
I get nervous with the mic because I got a very loud voice, so I'll try to be vocalizing where you can hear me, but I'm not yelling at you, okay? So, everybody got their stuff in stretched, and I hope we're rounding the end of the day. And I'm excited because we get to hear about Kansas City. And we have Andy Saccancino here today, who I don't know and I just met, so I'm going to do some reading, okay? So Andy Saccancino is Kansas City's Chief Environmental Officer as he shares some city's climate. I'm sorry, what are we doing? As he shares the city's climate goals, related policies, and what to expect from KC's protection and resiliency plan. So he works on a plan that he's, and then you do the fact check me. He's working on a plan with KC that has evolved from the 2008 climate protection plan, and just that now includes greenhouse gas reduction goals, resiliency, and equity. Is that accurate on the timeline? So you guys have been working for over a year to do the planning process, and these are going to be goals that are set in this plan for 2040. Is that accurate? Okay. Okay, so about Andy, and I'm going to put 2 mistakes in this. So we got to make sure he's alert and he's ready to go for this presentation. So I'm going to put 2 mistakes in his bio information. Let's see if he can catch them and see how he's going to clean himself. Okay, he studied geology at the State University of New York at Buffalo before getting his master's in environmental science from the Indiana University School of Public and Environmental Affairs. In his 48-year career with the city, Andy has provided guidance and leadership to the city staff on regulatory compliance and sustainability. Andy serves as city manager, mayor, and city council as an advisor on environmental issues relevant to city operations program and policies. Biology. He's alert, guys. I think he's got you guys under control for the next year. Thank you so much for being here, and we look forward to hearing about what you got going on in Kansas City.
Thank you. All right. So thank you for having me. I know the mayor was originally selected to speak on behalf of our climate plan, but he was not able to make it today, so I'll have Phil in and speak about our climate protection resilience plan. We've been doing a lot of work on that, as folks know, over the past year and a half, and we're getting real close to the end of the line on this one here. So pretty pleased about that. So today, what I'm looking to do is just kind of give you a brief overview of what we have in terms of the draft, and kind of show you a little bit of what's in there specifically on the energy subject matter. And then after I kind of do a overview of the plan, what we have, that to kind of share with you some of the actions projects that we've already got underway. So with that, we're going to start off talking about the plan. Just click right here. Okay. So what is the Kansas City Climate Protection Resilience Plan? So what it is for us, it's a roadmap. So we've not been pushing this as policy. This is something we've been stressing through this whole process, is that this is a roadmap for how Kansas City meets its climate neutral goals. And I'll talk more about what those goals are here in a little bit. But essentially, we're looking to build on existing work that's been done here locally. So as was mentioned earlier, Kansas City has a plan from 2008, but that plan stressed mitigation strategies. And so we want to go beyond mitigation and get into adaptation. We're also looking at incorporating the ideas and the actions through the regional plan that's put together by Climate Action KC here. So we're kind of going beyond mitigation into adaptation, and then looking at this through the lens of equity here in Kansas City, particularly at our neighborhood level. So this was the basic framework for the plan. And again, as I mentioned, it's continued to focus on mitigation, to focus on our greenhouse gas reduction targets. It's bringing in the adaptation component as it applies to our neighborhoods, and then looking at the equity lens so that we get a full climate resilience plan that is applicable for Kansas City and brings resilience to the table. So as part of this process, one of the things that we did was looking at putting together a climate risk and vulnerability assessment. We wanted to know what are those impacts to the residents of Kansas City as we develop these actions and strategies. So what you see up here on the slide isn't anything new. I think a lot of folks have seen these things. So in Kansas City, we're expecting a lot more heat events, more flooding events, intermittent with periods of drought. But other issues to contend with here in Kansas City down the road would be migration impacts, possible disease, and other factors. So, as we're developing a plan, we want to try to address some of those issues in that planning activity. We went a little bit further, looked specifically at Kansas City, and start looking at socioeconomic indicators. So, what areas of Kansas City are the least likely to adapt to the effects of climate change? And so what we did in this particular mapping exercise is to kind of focus on those areas that you've got buildings that were built before 1960, where you've got folks with disabilities, you've got ages under age 5 or over age 65. So there's a lot of indicators that are put in this to kind of help us focus on the strategies and actions in the new plan. So as I mentioned, the city back in 2020 decided to create new goals for the city. And so essentially what they said were being climate neutral by 2040 for the community, and for city operations being climate neutral by 2030. And as you can see in this slide, we have some interim goals in there as well in terms of electricity use. Now, as part of this exercise as well, as we were going through the planning process, we did an inventory, greenhouse gas inventory. So using 2019 data, you can kind of see there how we've done in terms of reductions since 2005. So what the community says here is 24%. And city operations did slightly better at 26% reduction. But one of the things to notice in this is that in 2017, there was a shift in the amount of reduction or emissions between buildings, commercial buildings particularly, and the transportation sector. So that happened around 2017, where the transportation sector was the largest greenhouse gas emitter. However, I think that is in terms of buildings, when you consider residential and commercial buildings together, that accounts for about 56% of the emissions in Kansas City. So this kind of an inventory helps us in terms of, again, actions and strategies as we move towards implementation. Now, this whole planning process included Kansas City residents, stakeholders, and city staff, council, to basically provide input into what are these things that make Kansas City resilient and to help continue to work in mitigation. So all of these activities and actions that were proposed over the past 6 to 8 months were organized into 6 primary areas of action. And you can see this up on the screen there. So at the end of the day, we're at the draft stage that we're still processing through this planning process. Based on everything that was provided, we ended up with about 22 strategies. And those strategies can be broken down further into 89 specific actions. So for today, what I was going to do, being that this is around energy in this topic, I'm just going to focus a little bit on the energy side. So, and I'm not going to focus on all the actions that were proposed in this plan at this point, but just kind of have a few for your consideration. Now, one of the things I'm going to mention right up front is that this plan is designed to be an implementation plan. So what you'll notice, the way this is organized, you're going to see immediate actions, and we also have near-term actions. This whole thing is being built around a short time frame between now and 2025. And the idea is in 2025, we'll evaluate how the actions are being implemented, where we are with our greenhouse gas inventory at that time, and then adjust accordingly. So this is supposed to be an adaptable living document that we can continue to adjust as we need to. It's going to grow. So starting out with energy strategy, number one was increasing the amount of renewable energy in the utility grid mix. And right up front, the very first action that's there is, of course, adding renewable to the grid. And in all honesty, when you look at our greenhouse gas inventory from 2019, the actual gains or reductions that we achieved really came from the grid. So much of that 24% reduction was because the fuel blend was better than it was back in 2005. So that's the first action that's listed there, is to continue to work in that area. From there, you see there's 4 or 3 other actions listed there. The one that I would put out there that our Climate Protection Steering Committee is particularly fond of is having the city get more involved with intervening, particularly on policies where there's a focus on renewable energy or electrification. So that was the first strategy. The second one gets into renewables in the community. So you'll see actions in here that are related to training in terms of workforce development around solar. There's reference in terms of bringing information and data to the commercial and residential customers. So we can leverage the work that the Building Energy Exchange is doing, as well as the Metropolitan Energy Center. So some of these actions help promote and bring renewables to the community. Another action that you might see up there is around community solar. And the city has already been looking at community solar in concert with Evergy. You know, we have, as a city, lots of property to work with. So whether it's the airport or we have several landfills that we oversee, we have no shortage of land trust properties to work with. So we've got trying to work with that region to find, opportunities or pilot projects to focus on more community solar. Another action that is breathing is how to make new construction solar ready. So in terms of the energy, new construction kind of focusing on solar ready. The third strategy focuses on resilience to the grid. So in this one here, you'll see actions kind of speaking more to smart grid technology. I talked about microgrids. And one thing that our plan does not get into is developing a clean energy plan. We did not have the funding or the resources at this time to develop such a plan. So one of the recommendations that's being suggested is to work with Evergy and our stakeholders to develop a more resilient clean energy plan that really incorporates what the future with electrification holds for us, and future temperature increases and how that affects the grid. The last strategy is speaking to purchasing utility scale renewable energy. And for example, this is similar to the Renewable Direct program that is offered by Evergy. City currently participates in this program, but it's how do we promote this for other organizations out there? So again, drawing up renewable energy. There's one of the actions that's promoted by the steering committee is advocating for community choice legislation in Missouri. And we know that it's sort of controversial, but this is what's on the table currently for consideration. So, at the end of the day, with these strategies, not just the energy strategies, but all of the other strategies being proposed, our consultant that we're using, which is out of Colorado, analyzed at a high level if we were to incorporate all of these strategies and actions, how far does this get us to climate neutral in Kansas City? And based upon the analysis that's been done to this point, we're at 89% climate neutral. So that's if every one of these actions was deemed feasible. And that's the thing, is that we have not done a full feasibility study on every dimension. At this point, this plant was built from every level of it, and there's still a lot of work to be done in terms of feasibility. So we expect that one of the things that will help us make up that difference will be sequestration, whether it's soil sequestration or trees. We recognize that we have not had a lot of opportunity to do modeling and to focus on that aspect of the inventory. So I think there's some room for improvement there. But also expect technology over the next decade to change as well. So we're hoping that that helps bridge that gap that we're currently having towards climate neutral. So going forward, as I mentioned, this plan is in draft. The comments came in up to April 12th was the close of the public comment period. And we received over 750 comments. So staff, our climate protection steering committee, and the consultant have a lot of work ahead of them to kind of help digest and incorporate those comments into the next version of the plan. So going forward, what we expect is essentially to bring a final plan to our executive team and to city council, probably sometime around mid-May. And then it would be going in front of council with resolution sometime by the end of May for their adoption. So again, this is a roadmap for Kansas City. Actual policy will come from that as we move through feasibility and implementation of the plan. Now, skipping forward a little bit here, just I wanted to kind of wrap up with what are we currently doing. And a lot of these particular things are projects we've already started that fit within the context of our climate protection plan. So we're just kind of go over a few of these things. First off, the city has been no stranger to renewable energy. We've already started with solar installations on our city facilities. So going back to 2013, we've got 58 city facilities with solar installations up to about 1.5 megawatts. Of course, this one's been in the mix lately. So our next endeavor, the specific solar installations on the city facilities only covers about 1 to 2% of the city's energy use. So we need something much bigger than that. So this is the next proposal. It's the solar farm up at the airport, where we've got about 3,000 acres of land that are kind of a buffer around the airport. We're in the midst of getting a feasibility study from consultants and working with NREL to see what we can do at the airport, whether it's a community solar project or whether it's energy for the airport specifically. Basically, we're open for anything at this point. We're still in the feasibility study aspect of this. But it's pretty exciting stuff, and we'll kind of keep everybody posted on where that one goes. The next one I mentioned are renewable drive with Evergy, and this was a program that we started on board with back in 2019, and the system or the program actually got started for Kansas City in 2021. That was our first full year under the program, and in this case, this particular part purchase agreement was for the Missouri West Territory. So for us, that covers ACI and a lot of our city facilities in Northland. So with this, so far, results have been very, very good. We've been very happy with it. We've saved somewhere more than $236,000 in energy costs based on the performance of the wind farm that we subscribed to. So we're pretty excited about this. We have not done the inventory from the greenhouse gas inventory that for 2020 we'll be doing that shortly to see what our greenhouse gas reductions are based on this program. But we're excited because this is only a fourth of what the city's usage is. The rest of the city facilities result with within the Missouri Metro territory, which would be a separate partners agreement. So that would capture all the other city facilities, pretty much everything else except for the streetlights. Our streetlights would not be able to go forward with the direct program. This next program is starting in May, called Solar Raise Kansas City. And you can think of this one as a bulk purchase program for solar installations. So this is going to give the opportunities to the residents of Kansas City, as well as nonprofits and commercial entities, to basically get solar installations at bulk purchase price. So the other thing mentioned about this program is that it's not just Kansas City limits. It's restricted. It would actually be open to anybody in the metropolitan area. So the goal of this program is to get approximately a 20% reduction on solar installations for those that sign contracts for the solar installation. So we're in the midst of bringing on a solar installer now in this program, and we'll be rolling out officially May 20th. And the idea is that this will have a limited window opportunity for folks to sign up for free assessments, and then you have until the end of the year to contract. At the end of the day, the final cost will be shared amongst all those that subscribe to hopefully get the best group discount they can get. This particular one, the city manager I like to talk to is about electrifying our fleet. So back several months ago, the city manager was very much in favor of electrifying our fleet. We'd already started in terms of the buses up at the airport, but we were looking at the low-hanging fruit such as sedans, SUVs, pickup trucks that basically our local inspectors use. So that's basically where we're starting. With the understanding that we're looking at technology in terms of heavy-duty vehicles. So we've got Packer trucks and other things that right now, based on our needs, the technology quite isn't there yet. But anyways, we're working forward at least with easier vehicles, and we're having a lot of good success so far. And our fleet manager, they love it because there's a lot less maintenance costs associated with it. But with that, we're also trying to deal with infrastructure issues. So making sure that we build out our facilities such that it addresses the needs of the vehicles as they come in. Okay, and the last project I just want to highlight is our LED streetlight conversion. Again, this is a big energy savings for the city. We've got 97,000 streetlights in Kansas City. We've already converted about 7,000 of those to LED. So we have 9,000 lights that we converted. We're looking to do that over a 3-year period. And the savings will be somewhere north of about $24 million for 10 years. So we're looking at not only the energy savings, but the maintenance savings, because there will be less visits to these lamps because of the LED, the nature of the LED lights. So pretty exciting stuff. A lot of the stuff is very supportive in terms of what our plan is going forward with, and pretty exciting stuff. And very much looking forward to continuing this kind of work. So with that, that's about it for today. I'm happy to take questions.
Are there any, pardon me, are there any questions for Andy?
Thank you. The 300 megawatt solar facility that you want to do at the airport, is that something that the city would do on its own? Would they hire a private developer to do, or would they have Evergy do it? How does that fit?
So we don't have a specific megawatts yet. It's still feasibility. So we've got 3,000 acres to work with, right? So we have wetlands up there. We've got a lot of conditions to resolve up there. So we'll see at the end of the day how many megawatts we're talking about. In terms of who would do it, that's still on the table. There have been no decisions made because we first want to see what's feasible. And so, like I said, NREL's helping us with this. We've got Olson is the consultant group that's helping us with the feasibility as well. But all those same questions have already come up initially is like, what are we talking about here? Is this a Evergy city project? Is it something that the city just does on its own to support the airport? Honestly, there's been no decisions made. We're just right now preliminary stages, just what's feasible. Could have been. I've seen 500 megawatts. I've seen all kinds of numbers for sure.
Bryce Graham, a reporter at the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. I'm curious if you can sort of, well, to what extent have you felt like Kansas City is at the mercy, perhaps, of other gatekeepers in meeting these goals? Reason I ask is because St. Louis has its own goals to, achieve 100% clean energy by 2035, I think it is, but they can make whatever goals they want, but, the rubber meets the road more with, Ameren, for instance, and the resources that are available. And in a lot of cases, it feels like the ball is not necessarily in their hands. So can you, I suppose, address, again, that extent to which, Kansas City confronts those issues with these other gatekeepers in mind?
Yeah, sure. So this plan was designed not to be something that the city does by itself. And I didn't stress that a lot in the presentation, but part of this plan was to identify those stakeholders, those partners that will take the lead on specific strategies and actions. So we understood going into this that as these were being proposed from the community, that some of these things are going to fall outside the wheelhouse of Kansas City, the city itself. So, we need to make sure we bring whoever those partners are to the table to help us reach those goals. So in terms of the utility with Evergy, it's working with them to, make sure that they continue their work in the bringing renewables onto the grid. It's working with in terms of the community solar that I mentioned before. So we've talked about various projects, the microgrids. I've already had conversations with that as well as what pilot projects we can we do. Obviously, we're aware that there are limitations to what the state will even allow us to do, and that whether we get preempted or not in certain actions. So we're going to do what we can do, but we're going to encourage our stakeholders and our partners to do what they can do, and we'll revisit this in a couple of years. So we're mindful of that we can't do it all ourselves, and all we can do is this is a roadmap. That's the best that I can describe it. It's not the policy.
Great. Thank you, Andy, so much for sharing the roadmap and the mission. Sorry the mayor couldn't come, but you were a fantastic step. I appreciate it. Thank you. So our last session for the day, throughout all of this, we talked about transmission. We talked about the last question from Bryce was about these invisible gatekeepers. Well, no one is more invisible than non-ISOs. And when it comes to most folks, they don't understand who they are, what they do, but they have a really big impact on what is developed, what is moved from one place to another. Missouri is so lucky to be right smack dab in the middle of two of them. It makes a lot of your work easy, I'm sure. But our next session will address this particular issue, both with representatives from MISA and SPP. And I'm really happy to be able to introduce Rich